Hello, everybody. Welcome back to 366 Days of Hope. My name is Pearl, and I'm here to share our next topic. Today, our topic is undo bad behavior. Now, it's still under the umbrella of mental health because what we've learned is that when we participate in negative behavior, oftentimes that's led by negative thoughts that we have turned into beliefs, which then we have turned into behaviors. And so, for example, maybe we have normalized hitting, okay? So hitting is a bad behavior. So when you were a kid, you may have seen it, may have watched it on television, but then you decided, oh, you hit your friend. Well, your friend didn't say anything, so you didn't think it was a big deal. But then you get older and say you ended up hitting your spouse, and they ended up saying, hey, I don't appreciate that. And they try to correct your behavior. And even if it was a play fight, at that point it was just a small behavior that they can see potential to it going bad, and they rebuke you for that. You being able to recognize that those actions are considered bad behavior to somebody, and maybe not to you, but you have to then correct your behavior. To be able to live in a society and adapt to the society or an environment that you still want to be in. And I think that it's so important that we have to be willing to understand and recognize if somebody calls us out on a behavior, whether it's, say you were just talking, I've had this happen where I was in a discussion with somebody and they continued to talk about something, and I'd say, hey, listen, I don't really think that's an appropriate thing that we need to be talking about. That's me correcting a behavior, but then the other person had then a choice to either stop and be like, oh, maybe what I'm talking about isn't a good thing, and to change their behavior, or they can completely ignore it, and then I would have a choice to then walk away from the situation. Either way, these are small little behaviors, and I know that we could talk about big ones, but we're not really focusing mainly on like sins that we do to each other, but more of just bad behavior in general that we don't want to inculcate into our character. Because eventually that's kind of what happens, right? So, and how does this affect our mental health? It's huge, because when you create these bad behaviors, whether it's a bad relationship attachment, maybe it's a bad way of communicating, these behaviors become a part of your character, and they can ruin your psyche, because then you may end up meditating on it, and you're frustrated that maybe people don't want to hang out with you very much, but you don't realize that you're doing a bad behavior. So if someone corrects you, try to think about it that it's done in love and not that it's done in malice. Like a good example would be the drinking culture. Okay, so I'm not saying that the people who do it are evil. No, I think that may have been created as considered an appropriate cultural behavior that people have gone through. The thing is that can set people up, though, for bad behaviors that they do because they are intoxicated, because they have shut down that frontal lobe and have allowed more of their impulses to be in charge rather than like their reasoning to be in charge, right? So those would be like, I would say, an example of where your bad behavior may come out even more depending on how inebriated you are, and also it can lead to dangerous situations as well. But if you already see those things and you've experienced it once, don't do the behavior again, because then you're just setting yourself up for constant failure every single time. And a really good verse that comes to mind is in Proverbs 26:11, where it says, as a dog returneth to his vomit, so a fool returneth to his folly. And I think that it can be very true. And I think the drinking culture is a kind of a good example. I have friends in the past who would drink until they blacked out, and they would get up the very next day remorsing over the things they did, couldn't remember, things they sort of vaguely remembered, and then hearing the stories about how they behaved or the things that they said, or and being mortified by it, and then continuing it again the following weekend. Well, clearly that person didn't learn, right? So the thing is, if you already have a bad behavior, it's just going to wreak havoc on your mental health, because then you may have to clean up a lot of the hurt, a lot of the damages that you've done along the way through your bad behavior, which is why it's so important that we limit as much of that bad, quote, bad behavior as much as possible, and or we try to apologize and take ownership of what we've done to bridge those gaps that we have broken. So with that said, guys, I really hope that you all really take that to heart and maybe think about, if you've done anything to somebody, maybe really take the time to self-reflect on what you can do to change if you've got any bad behaviors that somebody kind of pointed out. There are little things that people have said or that have made you self-conscious, but we want to be thinking about how we can, be better in our community. And so I hope that encourages you to take time to contemplate these things, because actually contemplating it is better than just putting it under a rug. We're addressing the situation, addressing our bad behaviors, taking accountability, and that actually works towards our mental health, believe it or not. Even though going through the ugliness of our character is difficult and can cause us some mental torment, at the end of it, you being able to face it makes you stronger of an individual, and it makes you more resilient. So thanks guys for watching. May you live, thrive, and be healthy. Take care, guys. Bye.